We're on to that time again. Something that is traditional for MRUG and Dynamo events. Tips and tricks. Anybody who comes to our usual MRUG events will be used to seeing Joaquim come in with his very entertaining background music. Unfortunately, we don't have that today, but we do have some really interesting tips. We've got one from Keith Wilkinson, who's just going to come back on and present one, and then Brendan's going to do one, and I've got a few to just finish with. So Keith, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. As I said in my presentation earlier, a lot of my Dynamo knowledge has come from standing on the shoulders of people much better at this kind of thing than I am. And my tip and trick tonight is exactly the same. I was watching a presentation. Let me just get a screen share up here. That one. Not make the same mistake as I made the first time. So I was watching one of the Your Name University presentations last week, and there was a presentation by a lady called Dana De Filippi, who's based in DC, who spends a lot of her time working with Dynamo, and in particular Dynamo Player. I've just put the tiny URL on there, just a link to the YouTube. It was streamed live, but it's still available to view. It's well worth having a watch if you have anything to do with Dynamo and Dynamo Player. But as I say, this tip comes directly from her, and it's to do with renaming nodes in Dynamo. So we all know that we can click into a node and edit the node name. So I can change that to hi there, or maybe I should do a hello world, seeing as we're in a programming environment, and I can change that, and that's fine. But what I can't do is I can't add any kind of return in here. So anything I do, any of the kind of usual tricks that work to get a return in won't work. Anytime I hit return, and it just cancels out, so I just get the single line. And what Dana realized was that if you create a group in here, it will let you put returns in. So I can do hello world, and then I can do code block. So if I do that, what I can do is I can select that. I can go in here and I can paste that in. So hello world code block. And if I accept that, I still just see what's at the top. But whenever I go into that, I still have this text that's underneath. Now, this presents a number of advantages to us as Revit users. For me, what's actually really handy is where I want to rename a node, but I want to remember what it was called in the first place. So whenever I go back to try and find it again, what I can do is I actually can just put what I want to call it at the top, and then just keep the original name underneath. But as I say, what Dana was coming at it from was from the point of view of Dynamo Player. So if I've got a couple of files here that I prepared. So I'll just open that. So what we've done here is we've got an integer slider. And with an integer slider, we can set values on that, so max, min, and the step that the integer slider will follow. And what we wanted to be able to, or what Dana wanted to be able to do, was to be able to allow users to see this information. So what the maximum and minimum was whenever they were in Dynamo Player. So if we just close this and go back to Revit and go to Dynamo Player, and I've got my node names here. So if I run just the standard node, and this will just take a wee second. This is where I kind of realized, obviously, it's better if you record these things beforehand. But you'll just have to bear with me. I think we're okay for time, though. So he said, please work. So this is what shows up. I've got my integer, it just says integer slider, because that's the title of the node, and then the value underneath. So there's no indications here for the user as to what those maximum and minimum values are. Because we can change the name of the node with this method, and if we run that, what we now see is everything that's named within that node. So we've got integer slider at the top, so it's still within my Dynamo script. I still know it's an integer slider. But underneath that, I can say the minimum value that's available is 0, maximum value is 100, and the step is 1. So as I say, anybody that uses Dynamo Player and has wanted to provide a little bit more information for your users, then this is the way to do it. And that's not my tip and trick, that's Dana's tip and trick. So thank you very much for that. So that's me. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you again, Keith. So Brendan, do you want to take over and
Yep.
show us yours?
Mine's actually going off what Keith said earlier about hard coding. Say if I come to Revit, yeah, I'm in Revit 19 Dynamo. So if I come to this script, you'll notice that the categories within this drop down are set as part and section boxes. So of course, if you run it, it will give you all that data. But of course, if you come over to a different Revit instance, and because it's not open, it's just opening now. And the same code, same Dynamo script, it'll give you different options. This is just how Dynamo works. It works on lists, it goes alphabetically, and it works on indexes. So the way around this is if I come to the one I prepared earlier, is you can use these two options. Of course, there's the one that Keith showed, which is the string into category by name, and then you go. The other one is to just type in category dot by name and then the option. So that covers you for categories. But how do you get element types? That one's a little bit different. What you have to do is you have to type into a core block, dscore, dot types, dot find, all of that. Then the first option is what you see in the drop down. So whatever you see in this drop down on the left. So if you go first, exactly how it's spelled in that, you put it in there. Then you just tell it it's looking at the Revit API, and then it'll work. So you get 2 phases there, and you get 2 phases there. This just helps you with different Revit versions, and that's my tip. Yep, that's it. Nice, easy one.
Okay, thank you, Brendan. We have a couple of questions that have just come in, one from Matt Hudson. Is there a node to select all or get all category elements, or is that a stupid question? Well, first of all, it's never a stupid question. I presume you're talking about all elements of a particular category. If that's the case, then the best way of doing that, there is a node that is all elements of category, but you have to define the categories, which is out on there. You have to define the categories that you're inputting.
Yeah, I think that's how I would take it as well.
You can input lists of categories as well.
Kevin, is there still a problem with categories where you have to put these at the OST in front of it?
Yeah, the built-in categories. Yeah.
So if you're feeding it in as a string, you've got to put OST.
Yeah,
OST underscore.
You'd need to know the hard-coded, the built-in category name.
But you can get the built-in category name, can't you, from Dynamo? That's don't you just do a category? Oh, I've forgotten myself now. But there's a node, isn't there, to get the category list out of Dynamo with the OST in it.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
But It is there. Just can't remember what it's called.
Yeah. And the second question that's come in, are we going to upload the videos? Yes. We are going to upload them. We'll push them onto our MRUG website and possibly the UK Dynamo user group website, and you'll be able to see them there. We just need to see what sort of format they come down in as to how we can upload them. So they may go on YouTube, or we may just stream them from our site. Okay, transfer over to me.
Are we heading down the ape and apple now? That's Dave Jones' question.
Have you got your?
I hope so. I came along for the free beer, pizza, and the drinks down the pub afterwards.
As long as somebody else is paying. Okay, so I've got three. I'll start off with the first one. So we've got the situation where you run your script and you're generating geometry inside Revit. But what you see is you see the preview inside Revit of the geometry. And then this preview tends to stick around for quite some time. So if you delete geometry, so I'm just going to demonstrate here, these previews stay here, and depending on how complex your preview is, you see a lot more. But what you can do is you can go to View, Background 3D Previews available, and then uncheck Revit Background Previews, and that will turn off the previews inside Revit. It's really handy then, because sometimes it can get really annoying when those just stick around for ages. So that's quite handy. It's not quite as accessible currently as it is inside Grasshopper, but at least you've got something to work with there. Okay, next one. Obviously, if you don't have the amazing features of Dyna standards, you can use the samples area location inside Dynamo, and we have the show samples folder. So in here, these are the basic kind of out-of-the-box samples that you can open and explore and get to grips with Dynamo, but you can also use this as a shortcut to a template. So basically what you need to do is just create a folder and then drop a Dynamo definition in there. Probably recommend it being read-only, and then copy it in. The reason why I've used exclamation marks here is to ensure that it remains top of the list. So it isn't visible to start off with, so you have to reload Dynamo. And when you open it back up, your template will appear at the top of the list. So this is quite handy just for having like standard text in there, as opposed to kind of copying them in from other definitions, and it kind of gets you going. Obviously, if you've got Brendan's great Dyna standards, then this will kind of shortcut that. That will shortcut this process. Okay, and this last one is a bit of a blast from the past. So what we have here is we've got a family. I'm just going to add a few bits and pieces in here. I'm going to turn this family inside Revit into a family template that I want to reuse again. So this is kind of a common process on projects. So family templates typically have RFT extensions, whereas the default one only has RFA. So you can change it into a template just by renaming it like that. So that means that when you go to New and Family, you can then use that that family that you've just created as a template for all your future ones. But something to be aware of is anything that appears inside that family or that family template isn't deletable. So what you can use the Revit Lookup tool. This is a plugin that you can download. It's by I'll remember the guy's name. Oh, sorry, skipping ahead there. Jeremy Tamick created this tool originally, and what it allows you to do. Apologies, I'm just going to pause that for a second just while I talk about that. What it allows you to do is snoop inside the Revit database. So in this instance, I selected some objects, and then I'm just going to kind of look at some information within there. And what I can see within here is there's a parameter called, and these are built-in parameters, there's a parameter called deletable in family, and currently it has a value set to 0, and the string value says no, it's not deletable, and that's why it can't be deleted. So what we can use Dynamo to help us out here. This parameter, this element deletable in family, is not a read-only parameter, so it's something that can change. So I'm just going to select those elements inside that particular family, and this is potentially, this sort of script is the sort of thing that you might have as a Dynamo player script or something that's quite accessible. So what I need to do is I need to set a built-in parameter value. This is quite an old video. This actually it's a blast from the past. So it's using an old package. It probably still exists, the node, but I've typed in the name of the built-in parameter, and then I'm setting the value 1, which is true or yes, and then I'm just going to drop this in. And what I'm doing is I'm just ensuring that it repeats the value for every single element, and it sets all the values as 0. That's not correct. It should set the values as 1. So if we just have a look at the object again, have a look at that parameter. There we go. We can see that that's now changed to yes as opposed to no. And then these objects are now deletable. So if you've got a tricky family or a family template that's causing some problems, then this one's quite a useful tool to tidy them up. Another option is to rename the template back to an RFA, delete stuff, and then change it back again. Okay, that's it from me.